And lovely to see you again, and thanks for making time for Sun City News to have a chat with you. A lot of things happening at the moment. I thought first we might talk about the situation with the fuel supply and the costs in Mallee. Mildura seems to have no shortage of fuel, even diesel. But of course we know there have been shortages, but the costs are just going up and up and up for farmers.
The cost is something that's going to hopefully even out over time, but at the moment, yeah, the cost is very high. And in terms of supply, it is, I think the best that we can say, John, is that this is a state of flux. The Iran war is by no means over, and ships are not sailing through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's a matter of waiting to see how this goes. And in terms of trusting whether it will settle down, you hear Iran declare internationally one state of affairs, and then you have Trump state another state of affairs from his point of view. What do you believe? I don't know. So I think we'll continue to, if you like, roll with the punches at the moment. I note that the Prime Minister has been overseas, of course, visiting multiple of our Asian suppliers, wanting to ensure that things are as they should be. He says he's gained 1 million litres of diesel. That's great. That's one day's supply. Who knows how much jet fuel he used in the process of going to those particular countries. And the fact is that we are a little bit like farmers, price takers. We don't make this largely, and therefore we are at the mercy of international shipping, international suppliers. Largely, we have 2 refineries. Of course, one has had an issue with a huge fire in its petrol part of the plant last weekend, and what that will mean in terms of ramping up to their normal 20% of Australia's supply and 50% of Victoria's supply. I guess we'll wait and see really how that goes. I've spoken with distributors locally. At the moment, you know, fuel is flowing. That's why we don't have Bowsers with "sorry, not today" on them. And it's a matter of really just seeing how this all plays out. The last month's bills for farmers who stocked up, concerned about cropping, concerned about actually being able to seed and then to harvest, those worries will continue. And you can't blame farmers for wanting to ensure that they've got enough diesel on their property to get their crops out and seed them. So, look, I think we're, at the moment, things are relatively stable. I noticed that the price has come down about 26 cents, which is what the rebate was supposed to do. It's only for 3 months, so a lot can change in the international environment in that time. I certainly hope that the government takes this opportunity to ensure that we have a plan and a strategic plan that is long-term, because it's been about 50 years since we have really had strategic resourcing plans that meet Australia's needs.
Yeah, well, it's a huge wake-up call, and let's hope people are listening and we get on with that, you know, big job of making sure we are not self-sufficient, but, you know, immune to a major shock should we have another dispute in the South China Sea. Who knows? Of course, the USA, Donald Trump, he doesn't have to worry. They are self-sufficient. He's got an enormous amount of fuel now that comes from Venezuela. So it's not really an issue for him. He just wants to deal with this rogue regime, and I think he's about to do that.
Yeah, look, I think we'll certainly wait and see what he chooses to do today, because it seems to be a daily. We'll see how the weather's going. I don't know what is motivating him entirely, but I think there is cause to reflect on Australia actually being able to be self-sufficient. We had Santos have a choice between Australia and Alaska in terms of developing or drilling for oil. Australia made it so difficult, and the lawfare around from the Greens and the EDO meant that they chose Alaska because it was cheaper for them to do that. So Australia doesn't have that investment happening, and something has to change if the Labor government is going to ensure that Australia can become self-sufficient again. They've got to deal with the Environmental Defender's Office and all those who align with that group.
And just quickly touch on the other thing that's affecting farmers, and that is the availability of urea to make fertiliser. I'm not quite sure is urea itself a fertiliser, or it goes into the production of it, but it's a key issue that's affecting our farmers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Australia, during the COVID period, the Morrison government invested to keep urea being developed and manufactured in Australia. That plant became too old and it had to die, effectively, go offline. And so the Coalition committed to Perdaman in Western Australia as a very large $6 billion plant. That is in process of developing, should open by June 2027. So from there on, we should be able to supply 90% of Australia's need for urea. But we've also got sulphur and sulphuric acid, both which are used in farming. Recently, in this last week, we've noted that that also has become an unstable source. So, there's a lot of moving parts here, but the bottom line is it's all fossil fuel. It is all based on fossil fuel. And the petrochemical needs of our nation, whether it's for hospital gowns and plastic gloves and medicines, like, we need fossil fuels. For all those who think we can just grow trees and live in a humpy, go for it. I'm sure there's plenty of space in Australia to do that. But for those who live in the real world, we need our fossil fuels, and we ought to be digging them for Australia's use, not just for the export market.
And just another question on our farmers. I noticed recently you've been advocating for interest-free loans for them. Where's that at? Is that a possibility?
Well, ultimately it sits before the government. I absolutely believe it should be available to farmers. The government made it, I don't know what goes on in the Labor government's head, but it doesn't move toward farming. And it doesn't move toward the risks and the difficulty in our farming sector because of all the reasons that we've provided. You not only have weather, you have the IR laws, you have the green laws, you have the requirement for them to put away good cropping land and turn it into a forest, to offset what they're doing to produce food and fibre for the world, and including Australia. There's a lot of craziness that has gone on in the last, multiple governments that we need to stop, and we need to go back to basics. We provide food and fibre for the nation, and we export 75% of what we grow. That is a really great outcome for Australia. If it wasn't for mining, if it wasn't for agriculture, Australia would have nothing.
Yeah. Just on food and fibre and the transporting of it from our region to the markets and the ports, something that has been lost in the ether, the botched Murray Basin Rail project, which has never been completed. We now used to have semi-trailers and then B doubles, and now we've got B triples. And you get caught behind 2 or 3 of those going to Oyen, and you may as well stop for an hour. And the hazards and all the associated things. But what can we do? We can't achieve 24-hour turnaround out of this region. And so they're all back on trucks. Will we ever see this rail service fixed so that we can have our freight go down on rail?
Well, between 2019 and 22, when the Coalition was in government at a federal level, I had the joy of committing $200 million towards that project. The federal government did a deal with the state government, who actually operationalised that project. Now, how much money they actually put into the Murray Basin Rail project, who would know? Because everything is, in black shrouds somewhere. We don't know, and there's no accountability for it. We know there are a lot of level crossings done in Melbourne in that period of time, but you're right, there isn't a 24-hour turnaround, and that, while Seaways have been able to make it work for their very long trains, there are others in the region, such as the Oyen Inc. project for an intermodal at Oyen that has gone nowhere and is dependent on that Ararat link to speed up the whole process, going to port or to market. So under the current Labor government in Victoria, I can't see the Murray Basin Rail project being completed because they've got no interest to do so. And you look at even them using second-hand railway... Sleepers, thank you, to do the work from Murrayville. I mean, honestly, what kind of thinking is that?
And the problem will be, if there happens to be a change of government, an incoming coalition state government, they're probably not going to have the money. And so anyhow, we'll see where that goes. Now, the rise of One Nation. Well, today we've seen in the latest polls that actually the rise may have peaked. There's no doubt it's changed the political landscape in Australia, and we're just not sure where that's going to go. We saw quite a big result for them in the South Australian election. They have to be taken seriously. Where do you think it's going? And I mean, could the Nationals or the Liberals and Nationals ever consider some arrangement with them going into a federal election?
Look, it's a question that's asked of me frequently. That kind of decision in terms of preferencing in particular at an election, such as a by-election in Farrer currently underway, that is up for our state and federal officers to work out. That's the work they do. We as MPs don't get engaged in that. I think Farrer will be another litmus test for how One Nation are going. They're obviously polling very well, as is the Independent. One of the things that we announced this last week is funding for the Albury-Wodonga Hospital, which has been a key problem for Albury-Wodonga. Services around 300,000 people, and a 2021 evaluation report on what was needed there was completed in 2021, subsequently hidden from the public, so the public didn't know what that report said, and the Victorian and New South Wales Labor governments committed to a brownfield site, which means building on the existing building. Never a great, if you're doing major works, which is what they need, then $558 million between both states was not going to deliver any more than 30 beds. That's a problem for the hospital. It's not going to meet their needs. So we have stepped in and made an announcement last week that we will give more funding for the brownfield site so it can be completed, but we will also be funding the purchase of a new greenfield piece of land for a new hospital. And for the business case to go along with that. That's an important announcement. That's what a party of government does. They look at what is actually needed, and even though it's a by-election and it takes the next election, federal election, for it to be cemented, nonetheless, the candidate knows both Liberal and National Party have committed to that. One Nation have said, we mildly support the brownfield side. The Independent is saying, we support a greenfield site. How's she going to deliver it? This is the problem, that people in the electorate don't understand that an Independent has no capacity to actually be in Cabinet, to sign off on Treasury dollars for any programs, any infrastructure. So I think people sitting in their lounge rooms don't understand how politics works, and that the major parties, yes, I agree, there have been plenty of flaws, but they are the parties that have history in government to deliver. Whether it's urea plants, whether it is rail, which Labor stuffed up in Victoria, whether it's major infrastructure, the Coalition in particular is very focused on that, and out in the regions in particular, that's my focus. In terms of how One Nation will go forward, they've got policies, none of them are costed. You know, we need to be real about what this is about. I think government must be held to account, and at a federal level we are doing the best that we can given the numbers that we have. But as I like to say, Labor have a mile wide and an inch deep when it comes to their power in government. There are a lot of MPs there, all 94 of them, 5 of them, who are there in the slimmest of margins. And what the Coalition needs to do is to know what we stand for, stick to those values and articulate them clearly. So the Farrer by-election, I think, is a great opportunity to do that. Water is another issue that's come up with Farrer. Obviously critical for our horticultural sector all through Mallee and through Farrer. And the One Nation candidate has, said that, I don't even know what he said, basically he's for irrigators, he's not for the Commonwealth environment to waterholder to have more water. Well, it's fine, but how are you going to do it? How are you going to deliver it? We have, under Michael McCormack, the current Shadow Minister for Water, have put forward a plan for the review of the Commonwealth waterholders' entitlements and how they have been using them. We want clarity, we want transparency, because this Labor government at a federal level is saying they want more water for the Commonwealth waterholder, taking it out of the consumptive pool, out of farmers' irrigation water, therefore putting the price up because it's always about supply and demand, and are not using up to 30% of what they have now, let alone adding another 450 gigalitres. There are huge problems that need to be addressed here. And probably the one thing that I get a little cranky about is people going, the major parties, they're all the same. No, they're not all the same. Labor have some awful ideological positions and are seeing them to fruition. They're focused on achieving that. Their seats are in the city, so they're concerned about the Green voters, the young voters. Nothing wrong with the young voters, we love them. But it is catering to throwing out sugar lollies, such as HECS debt relief, just prior to an election, to win those voters in order to win those city seats. I prefer to think that we in the Coalition are focused in the pragmatic and the real and the strategic, because Australia's future depends on good government, not bad government. And right now, we have a really bad government.
And Webster, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to have a chat with you on Sun City News.
Thank you, John.